first of all, it's not an indicator because it's not lagging. It's not. It is based on previous price action, but it's static. It doesn't change. So the pivot for the week, the pivot for the day, it stays there all day long, all week long. The pivot for the month stays there all month. The pivot for the year stays there all year. So when we roll over for January, we'll have a new set of yearly pivots on January 1st, and that pivot will stay there for the next 365 days. It cannot move. So even though it does depend on previous price action, it is static, and you can trade off of the set points. And I'll pull it up real quick.
Yeah, you got my attention already. Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't need to know the formulas for how the pivots are calculated, but I'll just describe it briefly. You just take the high of the previous time period, the low of the previous time period, and the close of the previous time period, and you add them together and you divide by 3. That sets your pivot for the next. So if you want to calculate the monthly pivot for next month, for January, you just take December's high, December's low, and December's close, add them together, divide by 3. That's going to be your January pivot, and it will not change for the entire month. And you can do it on any time frame. Like I said, you can do yearly pivots, monthly pivots, weekly pivots, daily pivots, and so that's how you get those. And then above and below the center pivot, or just the pivot, you've got these resistance pivots above it, and you've got these support pivots below it. And there's different formulas for those. But again, it's all based on the previous days, or the previous week, or the previous month, or the previous year. It's just based on that price action. And it says, okay, if you had a super big range last year in the SPY or whatever, and you close near the top of that range, then that just means that your pivot for the following year is going to be, high relative to the previous year's pivot, because, the market told you that it closed closer to the top of the yearly range than the bottom. So obviously the market is seeking value higher. So, what does this look like when you flash on a chart? So let's just look at the SPY. We'll go to the weekly chart of the SPY. And so we can see basically the whole past year. And so I've got my, I use TradingView. And if anybody wants to be able to, if you use TradingView and you want to put pivots on your chart, you just go up here to indicators and you type in the word pivots. And there's something called Pivot Point Standard. It's baked into TradingView. It's not like a community added thing. It's actually part of TradingView. And so you add those. I've added it like 5 times because I like to have all the different time frames up. So I've got my yearly pivots here, and I'll just turn those on. And so these are the yearly pivots for SPY here in yellow, if you can see those clearly. Mm-hmm. So this is the center pivot down here. And then this is the R1. This is the first resistance pivot. If I can drag this arrow up here. And then this is the support pivot, S1 down here. So generally speaking, this is the center pivot for 2021. This is resistance. This is support. And so what you can see is that obviously we know SPY has had a massive year. It's been bullish. Well, how would you know, SPY has been bullish? It's been above its center pivot all year. At no point this entire year did SPY ever consider coming down and testing even the center pivot, even the midpoint, right? It's just been tracking up to the first level of resistance all year. It hesitated once it finally reached up here. It kind of hung out here for a minute. It based off of the first resistance pivot. It came back. It retested. It hammered off of it. It took off again. I'm telling you what. I mean, if I had to put money on it, we could easily see SPY 483 by the end of the year, because it when you pull back and look at the big picture, it looks like SPY is trucking for this next R2. I mean, it bounced perfectly off of R1. It's going up. So, that's looking at it on a yearly basis. We can look at it on a quarterly. So what is SPY doing on quarterly pivots? Again, it came up here, tested the second resistance, came back to first resistance, back up. It's been kind of bouncing back and forth between R1 and R2. What's it doing on the month? We might need to go down to the daily now. What is SPY doing on the month? Well, it came down to S1, it hammered off of it, it went right through the center pivot, and now it's hanging out on R1. So these are a good way just to kind of gauge sentiment, right? I mean, right now, SPY is hammering off of resistance, looking to go higher up to a higher level of resistance. So, I mean, this is super bullish, at least on the daily, super bullish activity for SPY. And then, you can even go down and, okay, let's say you want to do your day trading and you want to day trade off like an hourly chart. Let's pull up our weekly pivots. Like, well, what did SPY do on weekly? SPY opened the week right on the center pivot, immediately hammered off of it, and went up above R1 and spent the whole week up here. So as long as SPY this week was hanging out, above R1, there's no reason to think you're going to come back and retest Monday's price area. It never even considered coming back and closing this gap. And then if you want to get down and trade, 5s or 15ers, let's turn on our daily pivots. What did SPY do on daily pivots? This is just one day. I mean, this is like a whole universe of trading activity. So on Friday, SPY opened above R1, which is resistance. So if you're opening above resistance, that's pretty bullish. SPY came down to the center pivot, tested it, rallied off of it, came back to R1, hugged it, and then right here at the end of the day, I mean, this is how algorithms are trading off pivots, right? And I firmly believe, having looked at this, I mean, do you think they told the algos what to do on SPY at the end of the day here? They said when it retraces back to R1, turn the buying algos on and buy it up to R2, right? Yeah. I mean, it top ticked it. I mean, pennies.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, algos, you got to tell an algo what to, trade off of. And these pivots are super popular ways to program an algo because, again, they're set at the beginning of the month or the beginning of the week or the beginning of the day, and they're good for the whole time frame. So if you want to set up an algo, it says, anytime you're at the center pivot, buy. Anytime when you reach R1, sell. And there's a great example of this, a good day trade that I made on Tuesday with Apple. And I'll go back to Apple. I think this was on the 30. And I was looking at a week. I was looking at a weekly pivot, or was I looking at a monthly? I was looking at a monthly. So here's monthly pivot Apple. And so this is on Tuesday. Apple gapped up. It's this time period right here. I think this is the day right here. Apple gapped up. And at this point, you've got the FOMO, right? Apple gaps up $4 and you're like, damn it,
yeah.
$4, I'm not, I don't want to buy this, I don't want to buy something that's gapping up $4, but maybe you still want to trade it. And you're like, well, if you turn your pivots on, what's up here? I can see that I hammered off of my weekly pivot, R1, and I'm trucking on my way up to my monthly resistance, R1. What are the odds that when price gets up to this pivot, I'm going to get some kind of a reaction? And I mean, you drill down on this thing. I mean, they bought Apple up to this monthly pivot, and as soon as it touched it, they turned the sell program on, right? So I like these pivots because they tell me what strat reversals do I really want to be involved with, and which strat reversals do I not really have any context for, right?